6:01. Call the meeting to order. I'm just going to read the governor's thing. This open meeting of the Library Building Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. You'll find the order is found on the town's website, and we are recording this. So I'm just going to take a roll call to make sure that everybody can be heard. And Beth.
Here.
Andy.
Jefferson here.
Julie.
Here.
Lisa.
Here.
Doug.
Here.
John.
Here.
And Mary here. And we have Mark Sullivan here. We have William Blake here. We also have two guests, Steve P. and Nancy P. So tonight is just a very short meeting to just discuss a few items. I'm hoping it's just 3 items that we need to talk about, which would be the heat humidifier and the outstanding bill that we wanted to vote on. Everybody good with that? Okay, so I think we're going to wait on the minutes, Lisa, until next time to approve those. So we'll start off with the change order for the commissioning agent, and maybe Mark, you can just bring everybody up to speed about the heat and the fluctuation of it, and how, you know, what's going to be done with it and why we're here tonight.
So this invoice from Colliers was our commissioning agent, and they had a proposal, which is up on the screen now, to commission the mechanical equipment, all the MEP equipment at the completion of the project. So a year and a half ago, go back to May of 21, and the project was complete, was in its final stages. And so Colliers went through all the procedures that they were obligated to do, but it was around that time that the engineer questioned. There was a contentious debate over was some of the work required or not? Was it needed or not? Was it redundant or not? And the mechanical contractor thought it was, the engineer thought it wasn't. The town finally said, if it's specified, we want it done. And so in the past 9 months, that's what the mechanical contractor has gone back to do. Colliers, in the meantime, had finished their contractual obligation, and now we've got additional work that needs to be commissioned. In the meantime, Beth, where she used to have access to the system, doesn't have access to the system anymore because the controls subcontractor has gone in to do this additional work. And so we're trying to wrap this all up. And Colliers has raised their hand basically and said, we're more than willing to come in and do this, but this is additional services, and that's what that invoice is for. So you can go one or two ways, but either case, I would advocate for this committee to approve this bill so we can move this forward, which would allow the final commissioning, turning back the controls over to the town and to the library staff, so that when there's a problem with a room that's too hot or too cold, 9 out of 10 times they'll be able to address it. What's happening now is they send out a call for help, you know, into the internet world, and it could be days before the issue is addressed, which is, it's not a good situation for anybody. So we're kind of spinning a little bit here. So I would advocate to approve it, and then you can go one of two ways. One is just it's in the grand scheme of things, it's a relatively small bill. It's an additional cost, there's no question. But in a show of good faith, as it were, pay the invoice, let's wrap this thing up and everybody go home. The alternative approach would be to pay this invoice and then put CTA on the hook and basically say, this is additional services. We wouldn't have had to do this if the work was done correctly the first time around. So I would advocate to, before you backcharge CTA, kind of hang on to this invoice. CTA knows about this invoice. They know that the potential exists that the invoice may land on their desk. But I would hold it, honestly, to see if veterans, the mechanical contractor, is really going to dig their heels in and fight what they thought was additional work. Nothing's come of that, nothing informal, certainly nothing formal. And if that just dies down, then I wouldn't push it. If they're going to make us think about it, then I would certainly backcharge CTA. But in either case, I would advocate for the committee to approve this invoice so the commissioning agent can wrap things up and we can get the controls related work, which is by far the biggest thing that's outstanding, closed.
Okay. So, does anybody have any comments on this? Yeah, Lisa?
I don't understand why we just don't have a working system that the library staff doesn't have control over under the original contract. Like, I would assume, and I'm not in any building, industry whatsoever, but we signed a contract so that the library staff can control their heat and their cooling system. And now we're being charged for what exactly again?
So there was a short time, period of time where all the things that you said were true, that the work in the eyes of the mechanical contractor was done. Beth had control. The fact the staff was trained, everything was good. But then there's this back and forth about additional work. So the additional work then was done, and they came back in and said, we've got to take control over the system again because we're doing all this additional work and we're going to have to rebalance everything. Everything's going to change. And now we're at the end of that process where the commissioning agent has to kind of swoop in again, approve everything, and then we turn it back to the library. So we're at the stage we were at the end of the project. We're doing it again. Basically.
So now I need to understand what the additional work was.
So the commissioning agent already did their work 15 months ago, and now we're asking them to basically do it again because this additional mechanical controls related work has been done. So changes have been made to the system, and we want somebody to come in and verify that the changes are accurate and per the engineer's design, and we need the commissioning agent to do that. But he's saying, it's been 15 months, I already did my job, this is additional services. Which honestly, it would be hard to argue it's not additional services, I think.
So Lisa, there is a little bit of history on this. Remember the controls, the mechanical contractor was not gonna, he didn't feel that he owned the controls and it was going back and forth, and they were gonna do it under protest. Is it still under protest or they haven't said anything yet? Correct, Mark?
They haven't brought it up again. And honestly, I think everybody's just trying to wrap it up. So
yeah. So so they didn't do the work for a while, but in the meantime, Colliers came in and commissioned the system, made sure it was all balanced. Well, then they had to come back, mechanical contract, do the work that they originally were supposed to do. So that's why this is a little bit muddy, because it's at no fault of Colliers to have to come back in to commission it. It is on the mechanical contractor because in the eyes of the team, they thought that it was owned under the specification.
right.
So, Beth?
Thanks, Mary. I do just want to note for the record that we have an outstanding issue with the children's program room, which is room 114, which is that a piece or valve is broken or damaged or defective, and we are waiting for that replacement to come in. But in the meantime, the temperature in that room is not able to be maintained to a temperature that children want to go in and sit on the floor. So we've relocated some programming as a solution. The teen librarian's office, room 122, does not have an independent thermostat. neither does the children's librarian's office. The children's librarian's office temperature does not seem to be an issue, but the teen office has been fluctuating from 81 to 64 degrees, and there is no way to control it. So we now have a complaint into Mass Department of Labor, an anonymous complaint that we are violating OSHA standard of an adjustable temperature of 68 to 76 degrees. And we're working to remedy that, but I do not have a solution, but I think you all need to know that that is an issue. Thanks.
Just a brief follow-up, not to drag this out, but on the children's programming room, so that was a warranty item. The manufacturer's rep came out. They thought it was a valve issue. Now they think it's an entire mechanical unit issue. So they are replacing that under warranty. So it's a warranty item, which in the big picture is great, but short term, as Beth mentioned, people aren't, it's not a space that people want to be in. The lack of independent thermostats, that's a design related issue. And so if we need to get another thermostat in a room, I would say we should do that outside of the contract. But that's something that between William, Beth, and myself, we could arrange to have happen. But so there's 2 rooms are joined under one control, but they're very different sized rooms. So when a room is satisfied, the heat, a bigger room is satisfied by heat, and by the time it turns off, this tiny room is on fire. It's 80 degrees and so forth. So it's just that's relatively easy to fix, but in the meantime, it's uncomfortable.
Okay.
So if there are this is John, if there is outstanding technical issues and we have these people come in and do this rebalancing, will the fact that a large room is basically offline and 2 rooms aren't working properly, will that mean we need to have them come back yet again?
No, it'll show, for example, when they balance the system, or the system's been balanced, rebalanced, and the commissioning agent is just going to go through that report. It'll indicate, say like the children's programming room is showing in error, or it's not pushing through the error that it should be. But in this case, we know the reason for that. So they won't say you need to rebalance this, you need to fix this. There's a problem. We know there's a problem and it's being fixed, and so they'll note that in the report, but they're not going to hold anything up.
But because that's a big room, when that gets repaired, how do we know everything is good and right and appropriate?
Was part of the repair, they're going to have to put the piece of equipment in, and then they'll balance just that one space instead of the entire library, just that one space. And that's owned under warranty, and so that won't be an issue.
Okay, thanks.
William, I was wondering if you had any input on this as part of the town. Do you think that we should, would you recommend that we approve this and then make sure that is, still on the table in case we need to put it towards the contract? I would think that the mechanical contractor would be responsible for this.
Yeah, so I would, after talking to Beth about it and talking to Mark about it, I would agree with Mark's assessment. I think that we're at the stage where we should be making forward progress on these things. We need to get this certified so that we can get the controls back in our hands and start solving some of these issues. But then we still have the option on the table to either put it back on CTA's desk or address it with the mechanical workers.
Right.
Sure. Okay, great. Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Yeah, Lisa?
My comment is, I feel like I'm being held hostage a little bit, that the only way Beth's going to get control is if we pay this bill. So that would be the only reason I would vote. I would vote yes for this. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but unfortunately, it's not Collier's that, that should be responsible. So if we still have it open and we haven't forgotten about it with the mechanical veterans, then we take it from there. At least we get it moving in the right direction and close this out.
CTA hasn't invoiced in several months, and their retainage that's being held 70,000+, the bulk of that is for controls related work. So even by approving this, we could still hold back $5,000 just to resolve this issue down the line, if and when they bill. I think they're waiting to finish everything and then they're going to bill 100%. So even if they do that, you could hold back even just the value of this invoice until we know everybody's satisfied, and then we could release it.
Doug?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, just as long as all of these other issues we're talking about, it sounds like Mark has confirmed that isn't going to require a recommissioning afterwards.
Right.
I think it makes sense to move forward with approval.
Right. So for
Thanks.
example, the programming room, the balance report, I'm making this up, but it'll say needs to push between 800 and 1,000 CFM per hour through the room. When they put the new unit in, they'll balance it to that specific standard for that one room, and then they're done, and we don't have to do anything else.
Okay. Beth, you had another comment?
Yeah, it was really a clarifying question, and forgive me, there are just so many details on my plate. So my understanding is we have a letter for an additional $1,600 worth of work for 5 meetings. But then I have this outstanding invoice for 374 that's actually dated for work through July 31st. I can pull that back up.
That's their base contract
Okay,
work, which they never closed, they never billed against. So that's not additional
all right.
work or additional funds, for the project. That's just, and they never invoiced for the balance of their work that was owed under the original contract.
All
Why
right.
not? Why do we have people that keep holding bills for 6 months and a year? I don't understand how that's acceptable.
I don't have an answer for that one, John. I don't understand from a business sense. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but
And then I also have a bill for through 9/30/2022 for $5,000 because I'm going through all of my items and I can share that. Like, I'm not clear. Is that also base contract?
that one I haven't seen. I saw the other one. I don't know if I've seen this one.
So I would think that one would have to wait until our meeting
Okay.
on November.
Yeah, yes, yep, okay.
So I'm gonna make a motion that we pay $374 to who?
All years.
Thank you, to Colliers for the bill for work dated through July 31st, 2022.
And I'll second. This is Beth.
Great. Vote by roll call. Beth,
Aye.
Andy,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Lisa,
Aye.
Doug,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
and Mary. Aye. Declare the motion carried. So do we want to also do the CO for the additional services for Colliers? We ready to
Yeah.
vote on that as well? Okay, can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion, but do we have an official change order number or change order?
No,
just-
you could just say that you could approve the additional work for $1,600 based on the letter dated XYZ.
Okay. Sorry, let me pull that back up.
Did that change order get circulated in advance?
I forwarded it. Yeah, everything.
Yeah.
else.
Yeah,
We have a lot of documents. I'm sorry, I just closed it. Here we go. So I will make a motion to approve a change order for $1,600 for Colliers for additional MEP commissioning services work based on a letter dated October 7th, 2022. And I can share that, Lisa, or send it so you have the language.
I second. Begrudgingly. No.
it's not over yet, Lisa. Vote by roll call. Beth,
Aye.
Andy,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Lisa,
Aye.
Doug,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Mary. I declare the motion carried. So those are the two items we had for tonight's meeting. I know that, William, you wanted to just touch base quickly on the humidifier? Or did you guys work that out?
I'm still waiting to hear from Ron on the final engineering. He has one option that he's presented to me, which is a unit that is going to be plumbed into the wall, but will be in the room itself. And then he followed up with me and said that there's a possibility of having a unit in the ceiling closer to what was originally proposed. So I'm waiting to hear back from him and the engineer to see if that is feasible.
Perfect.
But,
In the
Mark, was
meantime,
there any
excuse me.
discussion on the doors for the makerspace?
So I was going to ask about that. At the last meeting, we had there was a proposal for the wood doors in the teen makerspace in the community room. And we wanted to hold that until we got what we thought was going to be a credit on the humidifier and to see what the net add to the contract would be. So while that's logical and makes sense, what it does in effect is hold up CTA from doing anything. So they asked that tonight, they submitted and Beth circulated, they offered a credit for any unfinished work on the humidifier, and it was $20,000-ish. You can find that, Beth, while we're talking. And they would like, they essentially their argument is they would like to finish, but we're not letting them finish because we're not making up our minds on these issues. And so the humidifier, as William said, we're close, but we've been close for a while and we can't get over the finish line. So they've offered this $20,000 credit just to give that money back to the town, and then the town can take it from there. And we can finish the design with Ron, and then William and myself and Ron, we can work through channels with the town to get this piece of equipment up and running. But at least CTA is out of the picture, and the contract is $20,000 less, smaller. At the same time, we've got this wood door or this barn door proposal, the one that's on the screen now. Is this it? I'm not sure if this is it. And they'd like us to act on that one as well, because before we were trying to couple it with the humidifier, and they just said, please, can you just act on it on its own and on its, is it valid or not valid, again, so that we can move forward on this issue. This was a deduct, I think, Beth, for them not to do the work. And then they had the ad, this is it.
Okay. Sorry.
This is the ad for the doors. So if you were to approve the work on the doors and approve the credit for the humidifier at the same time, the credit was around $20,000 credit. The net add would be about $9,000 to close everything that's open right now. And that would allow CTA to finish. You were done, the committee would be done administratively speaking, and we would be very, very close to finish. The issue with the door proposal was it's expensive. And that was the biggest cost. This is another thing we went back and forth on for a long time. We finally settled on a design that everybody was happy with, but this is the cost to do the work. We confirmed with Chandler and CTA, because this is an older proposal, if it was still valid, and they said, yep, the number's still valid. But they asked, if we don't act on it by the end of the month, it won't be valid anymore. And so then if we keep CTA on the hook and keep this discussion going, this number could go up. And so this one, again, so they've offered a credit not to do anything, and then they've offered an ad to do this additional work of $29,000. So this was another thing that we talked about, taking the credit not to do anything and then finishing the work outside of the contract, and the town can hire somebody independently to do this work. They could hire Chandler, who was the subcontractor, to do this work, but it just would be outside the contract. And so if the capital campaign, if there's money there to do this, you could pursue it that way, certainly. Or if you were to keep it in the contract, you you could take this ad and then take the credit for the humidifier, and you'd end up spending about $9,000.
Can,
I
can
have
you
a
just
question.
clarify
Yep.
sorry,
No, go ahead, Jeff.
can you clarify? So the original estimate for those doors was $9,200 and the new estimate for those doors is $31,846.
Correct. Wow. So at this stage, though, honestly, I think that credit is probably light and the ad is probably heavy. But the stage we're at, the Beth has been in this building for 15 months. And so everybody's gone, everybody's moved on. And so it's going to cost us more than it should to do this work now. But in this day and age, if you were to go out and try to find a contractor to do just this work, I don't know what that cost would be or how long it would take. Right now, we still have somebody engaged. And if this is the last thing they have, I would imagine they'd try to get through it pretty quickly.
So my question to you, Mark, was has it been vetted out, the change orders from for the humidifier credit and for the barn doors between you and Ron? Have you guys looked at it? And you sort of just answered it by saying it's a little bit light on the credit, it's a little bit more on the and I know materials and labor right now are just skyrocketed.
Right,
So
right.
we're paying premium no matter what. So no
Right.
matter who we go to, we're probably going to pay premium.
Right.
But have you guys looked at these? And
So the short answer is yes. And I think
Okay.
we're both in agreement that it's not ideal, but honestly, we're not in an ideal position asking for this work 15 months after the building's been occupied. It's not a great situation for everybody, but this would wrap up all the formal proposals that are open.
And then my other question to this would be, so if we take the credit for the humidifier, are we going to get that work done? I mean, or is it just, a lot of times, if it's taken out of the contract, then it's not going to be done for years because other things come up and the money gets spent other places. So
No, I pledge, I'm in this until we're done. So I'll stay with Ron and William and just work on,
Okay.
Tyler, the engineer, was on our Zoom call the other day, which was great. And he's vetting the few options that Ron has come up with. So I think we're close. And I think when we get to the final design between William, myself, and Ron, we can figure it out.
So that money to do the humidifier is still in there. This is just the credit for the larger one that we were originally going to have.
Right. If you remembered, we approved additional work and now they're just going to credit it back. And then we're going to have, this is the $20,000 credit. So ultimately we're going to have additional work but we know it's going to be a lot less, but we just don't know how much because the design's not done yet.
Okay. Does anybody else have questions on this or comments? I can't see anybody. Beth, if you could get the gallery back for me.
Lisa's got a question.
Of
Great.
course I do, right? Like that should just be given what
I
we
should have just said
That's
Lisa.
right, yeah, right.
I'm okay with that. So I don't know enough about these barn doors at $39,000. Is this something that's a necessity at this point? Like, is it a security issue? Is it a safety issue? Or is this something that we can say, all right, let's take the credit, focus on getting that project done, see where we're at, and then reevaluate the barn doors as an add-on later on through the town, like bidding system or whatever we do?
So Beth, I'll let you take that one.
I would say that anything that is called out in the building program that we wrote to get the Mass Board of Library Commissioners, Mass Public Library Construction Program grant is really required to finish. It doesn't mean that we spelled out barn doors, but I would say that the rooms, we're not able to use them fully as intended without the ability to shut off the presentation area and kitchen to do catered events. And since we are now very close to that lock, if we don't already have it, I'll be surprised. to allow the public to come in and use that program space after hours for things like catered events. I think it's pretty essential. Not having the barn doors on the teen makerspace is one of the things that's preventing us from getting the 3D printer up and running, because the argument I'm hearing from the teen librarian is if we're going to have the printer running, we want to close off the room to keep it safe. We can't do that. We also don't have the ability to have a program or event in the makerspace, which is outfitted for a movie night, for craft programs, to separate it from any noise or chaos, because there's not a way to close the space off. So I think they're important design elements that are missing and don't allow us to utilize the space as it was fully intended.
It just
That
seems,
said, we haven't had it for 15 months. So if we think we can do it cheaper elsewhere, we want to keep waiting, that's fine. But then I think the expectation to deliver a catering space with a presentation area that can be closed off, or to implement the 3D printing or the teen programming in that room, maybe it has to go somewhere else, also needs to be moderated.
So from what I'm hearing, it sounds, to your point, Lisa, yeah, we might be able to find a cheaper option, but they've looked at lots of options through design and what's in character of the space. So yeah, we might be able to find a door that's cheaper, but it was part and parcel of the contract to begin with, just not to this, what happened, why are we paying extra on this? Like, what was originally there? Nothing?
Sliding barn
missed?
doors, like
There
a
was-
sliding barn style door, and now it's a folding bifold kind of a door to just close off the space.
This is John. I have a question. So if whatever was designed would not work for whatever reason, is this not something whoever that designed it should be responsible for covering the cost?
Whoever designed it would be DRA. And so there were two things with the design. One, ultimately, this current design that we're talking about is a better fit for Beth for the use of the space and the operation of the doors themselves. But from a design standpoint, when they got into the submittals, they found that the weight of the doors, these were big, heavy wood doors, the hardware that was specified wouldn't support the doors that were specified. And then we ended up kind of spiraling, trying to find hardware that would work or lighter doors that could be built, similar to that, the whole gate exercise at the bottom of the stairs. And then during that discussion, we couldn't find something that works. And then we started moving toward a different design entirely and settled on this.
But it sounds
So
so it sounds like
with-
though that the design was flawed, and we're trying to correct the flaw, right?
Yes. I mean, you could say that's a
So-
broad statement, but yes.
Well, I'm just trying to get to the kernel of it, is that somebody made a mistake, but we're having to pay for that mistake, even though we didn't make the mistake as the building owner.
Correct. I don't disagree. I would imagine the counter argument would be, if this is a preferable design and it costs more and it was included in the original bid package, then you would have paid for it then. And now you're just paying for it later.
Well, but they designed something that couldn't be built. It sounds like that there was no hardware to support what they designed.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just trying to play, devil's advocate a little bit from Ron's point of
Well,
view, but he's
then
he's not with us
then-
tonight, but
They need to go out and find the hardware to make it work. If that's the way it's designed, that's not our job to scramble, make
well,
it
that's-
work.
we did. That's part of what we've been doing for the past 15 months, is trying to find something to make it work, and then they couldn't. And so then we ended up redesigning it 2 or 3 times and landed on the proposal that's in front of you.
Okay, which then my whole point continues to be, the design was flawed, and therefore whoever that designed it needs to own this. That's
I'm not-
my,
I'm not disagreeing.
thank you.
My question would be, is there is there a credit back for, is it $39,000 more than what was owned under the contract?
Yeah, it's 29, yeah, 29,000, and they, within that is a credit. Trying to look. I thought they gave a credit of, trying to find it. Yeah, of, that's not right, 2,500. I'm looking at the humidifier one. They gave a credit, so basically, Mary, they gave a credit of the work that wasn't done that was originally designed. So they started off with a credit and then they had an add, and the net was 29,000.
Doug?
Two things. One is I haven't seen like a balanced budget lately. Are we still under budget? I mean, is these costs we're talking about still within our current budget, or are we going to have to look for funding outside?
Well, originally, so when we had this proposal for the 29,000 for the wood doors, because of the budget concern, we said, let's wait for the humidifier to see what that, if we can not reduce the cost of this, but reduce the overall cost of the open change orders if the dehumidifier number went down. So now in this scenario that we're talking about tonight, budget-wise, this would be the best case scenario because we're just taking all of the humidifier work away and taking that full credit. And so this 29 goes down to 9. So from a budget standpoint, this would be the best thing to do. If you were to do this additional work, this would be the best way to offset it with that credit from the dehumidifier.
Okay, and then the second question is, can you remind me what OHP is? That's it's getting added on 15% at the end. Is that their overhead or their
overhead and
profit?
profit? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay, that's what I thought.
And that's written into the specifications, that amount that they're allowed.
Right. So if the town could bid directly to Chandler, we would save a certain amount of money.
Right, you'd save that overhead and profit.
Okay, so William, do you have anything on that as well? I mean, do you think that it would behoove us to wait and do it outside of the contract, or would the town prefer it to be done now under the contract?
So generally the town would prefer any work that's in the contract to be done under the contract. That's sort of the ideal world. I think that's what we all want. If we have somebody on the line right now that can do the work, I think it might behoove us to go with that. As Mark sort of touched upon, if we get a credit for it and do the work outside of the contract, we then need to go through the bidding process depending on the cost of the door. That's going to put us out a little bit further. And I don't know what the cost of goods are, so I don't know how much it's going to cost, in all honesty. My concern with this is the humidifier, in all honesty, and taking a credit for all of that work. And Mark, I would sort of defer this question to you. Do we have any estimate on how much it would cost to get the humidifier in outside of the contract? And what work has already been done in there that we can just tie into?
So we know it's going to be somewhere between, I would say, 0 and 15,000, somewhere in there.
Do you say 1.5 or 5.0?
1.5.
Okay.
So it's going to be relatively small. The unit that they're talking about is much less substantial, and it doesn't have the mechanical requirements as did the original design. So the work involved is going to be much less, and so I think it's something I wouldn't say otherwise if I thought differently, but I think it's certainly between you, me, and Ron, we can figure this out.
Okay. So I mean, with that, essentially $5,000 of the credit would be able to go towards the door. Is my understanding. If it's
Right.
$20,000 credit,
Right.
and we got to spend 15 on it for the
Right.
humidifier.
Yeah.
Okay, so that makes more sense. All right, I was wondering where we were coming up with the money for the humidifier. So 15 of that has to go back at the most, probably
Potentially, right,
15. Yeah,
right.
okay. Okay.
I think this needs to be done, as Beth said, this is what was specified in the grant. It's what's needed to make those rooms functional. But I really, really have a significant problem that we keep having paying this for things that are being corrected that should have been done correctly the first time, and it's costing us significantly more to do the work, but it needs to be done.
Anybody else? Andy?
I just want to confirm that I'm understanding everything properly. Because if we take the full 20,000 credit for the humidifier, we had kind of talked about that first and put it towards the doors, we're still left with roughly 9,000 in hand that we have to pay for the doors, plus whatever
Correct.
is happening with whatever does end up happening outside of that with the humidifier. So if we said like the 9,900 for the doors, and then up to 15,000 worst case for the dehumidifier, we're still talking about almost 25,000 additional dollars.
Correct. And so what we're kind of splitting it out and closing up the contractual stuff and dealing with humidifier outside of the contract, but the cost is going to be the same, to your point.
Right. It's basically, which bag do we want to hold? Do we want to be holding
Right.
the door bag at the end, or do we want to be holding the dehumidifier bag?
Right.
But who pays the dehumidifier bag if we take the credit?
It's still going to come from the committee or capital campaign or it's going to come from the town, because that work still has to be done. And so what we're debating is whether to do it under contract, in which case we still have to wait for the design to finish, and we keep CTA on hold. And they're raising their hand and saying, enough's enough. It's been 15 months. Please let us either finish or release us. And so that work would still be done when the design is done. It would just be outside of CTA's contract. And so the town could buy the equipment directly, which would save money. And then we'd have to coordinate the installation, but still ultimately it should cost much less than if we had CTA do it.
But where does the money physically come from? And I know Beth has to go to another meeting and use this Zoom, so I don't want to be a pain in the butt here, right? But like, I get the whole process of this, but if we're still over budget after we pay the $39,000 for the bar door, the door, and then we take this $20,000 credit, then we get another bill where however it gets done, and there's no money left in the library building committee, how does that physically get paid? That's all I'm looking for. If everybody's confident it's going to get paid and, Doug's going to write a check out of the capital fund for it, great. But if not, we should think about that.
But do we even know that we don't have money in the current budget? That's what I asked earlier.
Yeah, there's a little, but there's not a lot, but we also still have our LEED certification, which I think we are going to be hitting that silver LEED certification, which is another 165,000. And we had talked about prioritizing roof screens with that money, but it wasn't $165,000 worth of roofing screens.
Right.
So I will send out I have like an end of fiscal year report from accounting that I will send out for our next meeting.
So that
So we can get the
lead related
out
money,
quiet.
so that lead related money will come back to the town. It'll be earmarked specifically for the library. There's just a lag on that. You're
Yeah.
not going to get it in the next couple of weeks. You're going to get it.
Yeah,
down the road.
it'll at least be April. One thing that's both concerning and going for us is that other libraries have until January 2023 to get their matching funding from their towns. And what the 9 or so libraries on the waiting list are finding is that their projects have completely doubled. So where they would have had a 50% matching grant, we had close to 48 or 49%. Now their project has doubled. So now they're getting 25% of the money from MBLC, and the town needs to come up with the other 75%, and they can't swing it. Westboro's vote failed. I think Seekonk just failed. So the flip side of that, it's terrible for those towns but it could mean that we get the rest of our grant money in one payment between April and June, as opposed to a portion this year, a portion next year, and then
Right.
at some point, the lead certification money. So we may actually get some significant money, but the only thing that would be extra would be the lead certification. Because remember, any grant reimbursements we're getting are going towards paying down the bands that we took out.
I don't know if we're ready to vote on this, Mark, unfortunately. I think we might need until the November 7th, because, I mean, that's just my opinion. I don't know if
totally
we should
understand.
close it.
I get that, and I know time is wasting, but the CTA just gave us a heads up that basically said, our proposals that have been open there for a long time and nobody's acted on them, they're only open through the end of the month. And so if on the November 7th, you agree as a committee to pursue this, what I'm afraid is going to happen, I'm going to go back to CTA and they're going to say, nope, those numbers aren't valid anymore, and we're going to go through this again.
But the only thing is, I mean, we haven't come to a decision on the humidifier yet we're taking a credit on it. So I'm a
We're
little
taking a
confused by
credit on, so this committee already approved additional work on the
Oh,
humidifier.
okay, right.
That's what they're
Okay.
giving a credit on. They're
Okay.
saying, either way, they're not going to do that work that you've already approved. So they're saying, we'll give this back to you. Just let us go home.
Okay. Does anybody else have any more questions? Comments?
Yeah, just to reiterate John's comment about the architect, I mean, we don't have them on the call today. It would be nice to have a conversation with them. But it seems like the cleanest thing is to take the credit, approve the doors, and push the humidifier off. But I might be reading it wrong, just because it seems like that's much more of a smaller unit that is manageable as an outside piece.
Mark, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
The credits that CTA is offering us, is there any flexibility there? I looked through the list you gave me for monetized items and noticed some things weren't on there, like the mismatched shingles on the roof, which should have been rectified and never were. So is there any wiggle room there?
I mean, we went through, if there are items like that, we might go back and monetize those and hold back monies specific to those items on the retainage release. But relative to these, again, we're not in a very strong position because we're so late in the game. It's this, none of what we're discussing tonight, none of this should be discussed 15 months after the building's been occupied. So we questioned, as we mentioned at the beginning, we thought the credit was light, the ad was heavy, but CTA wasn't budging. In this case, on the doors, it's really Chandler Architectural. It's really their subcontractor, not CTA. And Chandler's saying, that's our number. It's, if you don't approve it, they're okay with it being rejected, but that's their number.
Okay. So again, sounds like we need to get things moving.
So I'm gonna make a motion that we accept the $20,000 credit for the humidifier.
I'll second.
Okay. Vote by roll call. Beth,
Aye.
Andy,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Lisa,
Aye.
Doug,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Mary, aye. Declare the motion carried. Somebody want to make a motion on the doors? Beth? No. Nobody wants to make a motion on the doors?
I will. I move the board vote to approve the change order for the barn door upgrades.
And I want to confirm the price. Are you saying you're making a motion for $31,846?
Yes. Thank you.
Anybody want to second it? Doug?
don't we have to approve these other numbers, the other ones that are on PCO 116? Or can we just approve a piece?
What else is on? I don't have it in front of me. Doug,
Well,
what
it
else
has the
is on there?
9,200 credit for the original doors. It has the,
Yeah,
Couple
it's just the
Overhead
total,
and
but-
profit.
Yeah, but
overhead
it's
and
all,
profit.
it's all part and parcel, right?
Right,
Yeah,
so
it's-
that's
it's-
29,000.
Yeah,
Yeah,
29,
so that-
378,
So that's the price that we should be.
correct.
All right, can you say the price one more time, please?
29,378.96.
So Andy, is that still your motion?
Correct.
Okay.
Somebody want to second that?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Julie.
I just wish there was someone in town who could just do a quick, I don't know what the
Yeah.
procurement is like in town, but anyways. It is what it is.
Okay. Any more questions on it? Comments before we?
well, importantly, we're still under budget, right? At this
Yeah,
point, we're
right.
still under
Right.
budget.
Yes.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, we're paying a premium, but we need to get it done, and two, we're paying more money, but not, I mean, we're still getting a good product
Mhm.
for it, so.
Yeah.
Okay, vote by roll call, Beth,
I,
Andy.
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Lisa,
Nay.
Doug,
Aye.
John,
I,
Mary, I declare the motion carried. Okay, that's it for, oh, go ahead, Beth.
I'm sorry, I still have another bill that I sent out for signage for the wetlands.
Okay, I thought we
Hang
did
on a
that
second, I'll pull
last
it up.
time.
DPW helped procure this work for us. There's a whole bunch of little signs all the way around the perimeter now with the wetland delineation.
I thought we did this last.
thought we did it last
We did it
meeting.
already?
Yeah,
Sorry. Then we're good. I'm sorry.
no worries.
All right. Take it back. I moved to adjourn.
Mhm.
and we're still
Okay.
meeting on the 7th.
Yes, we are.
Yes.
Yep. Okay, somebody want to second that?
I'll
Second.
second it.
Oh, so now I got everybody. Vote by roll call, Beth,
Aye.
Andy,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Lisa,
Aye.
Doug,
Aye.
John,
I.
Mary, aye. Great. Thanks, everybody, for getting on this interim meeting, and we will meet again on the 7th at 6 p.m.